welcome everybody to a new edition of the LitRPG Audiobook Podcast. I am Ray, your humble reviewer. Today I'm going to be reviewing some awesome and classic LitRPG audiobooks for you. Today my first book I'm going to be reviewing is The City in the Dungeon and All Those Who Dwell and Delve Within by Matthew Schmidt, narrated by Doug Tisdale Jr., with a book length of 9 hours and 46 minutes.
The crystal spires of the city rose high into the sky, far higher than we flew. I thought they were some kind of natural formation when I had first seen them through the porthole. So they still seemed as the airship approached. Tall, cylindrical yet uneven coils of many-colored crystal ornamented with gold, silver, and wide platforms of marble and obsidian. All around, the bright savanna stretched endlessly into the distance. I wondered why I heard no more commotion from the airship's crew above deck as we approached. Surely they would begin mooring preparations soon. No, that we appeared close was an illusion, for the spires of the city were so massive they appeared closer than they were. The city, no need of any other name. Had any existed when it was only a camp of brave souls, it was lost in its present grandeur.
So, I don't often say this about a LitRPG audiobook, a book, but this one really kind of stands out for different reasons. It pretty much avoids all of the repetitive things that occur in other books in this genre. I like that. I mean, it tells a story, but it doesn't slavishly follow conventions set forth by other books in this genre. Plus, the characters, even the background ones, are all interesting, and the story's pretty compelling, which leads us to a fantastic tale that you are lucky enough to be able to read or listen to. The main character, Alex Kenderman, decides to start out his life as a dungeon diver, and the whole system is sort of based on different kinds of crystals, and so you kind of have to get through the system. I don't know if you remember me talking about Advent, and how the system was kind of complex for a while there. And this one started off with the same way with me. It was kind of hard for me to come to grips with or comprehend until it started flowing a little bit better. It's based on crystals, and the crystals follow the color wheel, red, orange, yellow, blue, etc., the Roy G. Biv stuff. The players all have auras that grow stronger and change colors as they level up, and in order to survive, they must eat at least one crystal a day. Talk about new age psycho crap. I don't know if I'd want to eat a crystal. I don't think my teeth are strong enough for that. I mean, I eat popcorn, and I broke a tooth eating a piece of popcorn. So, and I drank milk, and milk is making me strong. So, like I say, there's a lot of things going on there, but it's got its stuff. But once you get into it, it kind of makes sense. A bit of a warning. Okay, I'm just coming right out and saying this. The book does start off a wince slow. It takes some time to build up some steam. It really does. There was a point where I was like, I just don't know if I can do this or not. And like I say, I always go through with it. So thankfully I pushed on through the slowness, and got to the point where it said, hey, here's a story here that you're going to really like. So once that boiler pops, you'll be going full bore down the rails without any breaks. So seriously, it picks up and it never looks back. It doesn't. I think it helps that you aren't bogged down by characters having to farm, as Schmidt, the writer, kind of smartly skips that plot of the storyline. It's a wise choice. Another issue is that the sheer number of characters can be a bit overwhelming. But unlike some books, and I think I just talked about one recently where there was just so many characters that I had to just kind of say, that's the butcher, baker, candlestick maker, king, queen, the burglar, the thief, that sort of stuff. That's who they were to me. They didn't go by names. They went by the librarian and stuff. And I'm not trying to put that book down because it was a really good book. Siphon was a really good book, and I loved it. But the characters, there were so many that they had no faces to me. Putting their names out there, it just did not stick. Here, it's the other way around. You get a lot of characters, but they all kind of stand out. They do really well. It's pretty impressive. So the crux of it is the story is more character-driven, and I think that's why it works so well with those other characters. Because it's more character-driven than anything else. The plot is good, the gaming stuff is there, but it's the characters that hold your attention and keep you listening. So what's different? You're going to ask me, so Ray, come on, tell us, spill the guts. And that's a lot to spill, so I have to keep that down. What's different about this book? Well, for one thing, the protagonist is not overpowered or have any special abilities that no one else has or can get. He's pretty much just a regular Joe, leveling as he goes along. Oh, and there's no uber power leveling either. I also like that you weren't overwhelmed by game mechanics like stats and screens and damage reports, etc. It doesn't hurt that the characters are all likable and hold your interest. Additionally, I think the game system itself is well thought out, that it allows for some cool class building. Now, the story has a feel like World of Warcraft insofar as the characters try to go out, get gaming gear, go on raids, so on and so forth. So when you read this, if you've been through any kind of an MMORPG, you're gonna know exactly where they're coming from, because this totally has that kind of a feel. I was pretty much waiting for someone to Leroy Jenkins it, through one of the raids or something. Didn't get it, but maybe next time around. Now, one benefit, and I talk about this lots, is there are not a lot of stats thrown at you as the book moves. The story rolls along. You're not being smacked in the face by numerous reports of status changes every so many pages. 15 pages, you get a great big status report. Or every 5 pages, they've changed their strength, or there's this, so you have to go through everything. That's not the case. And I always feel like sometimes it just seems to me like they're doing that to build up their word count and their page count on a book. Because you can have a 300-page book, but really 100 pages of that is just stats being repeated over again, or, like you've taken 27 points of damage from fire, and it just repeats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ad nauseum, ad nauseum, ad nauseum. And that's fine. I know that there's people that really like that crunch, but for listening, it doesn't work well, because I can just scan. Like if you were reading, you could just scan. You've taken 5 points of damage. 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 And it takes you about half a second to read that all the way through. And it doesn't be as bothersome as it is when somebody has to read, you have taken 5 points of damage. You have taken 5 points of damage. You've taken 5 points of damage. And as they rattle through that. So it's nice that you don't get that here, okay? And so you might say that this looks less at stats than it does at world building. Another thing is that it's usually problematic, for me anyway, is that there are huge jumps in time throughout the book, during which new classes might have suddenly been added, and for a character, or other things show up, and you're going to go, what the hell? What the hell just happened here? Why did I miss all this? And I'll be honest with you, that's what I did when it first happened. I was like, the frick? What happened? Did I just miss a whole chapter? Or is there something missing from here? And I would go back and go, nope, it's all lined up, and maybe they've got this book out of order or something. But it's not. They literally just say, okay, this is not important. We're going to move ahead here. And 99% of the time, and 99% of the books that you would read that would do something like that, you're going to get really aggravated because you want to see how this happened. Here, it's not all that blown out of proportion, because, so what if so-and-so suddenly gained the Feather Ranger class, or some stupid thing like that, because it really just nothing you really need to worry about. They just added it in there. They have it, so you don't have this huge sprawling tale that just goes on and on over silly things. They just say, look, we got this, we moved on. And it actually works, because the story flows really smooth and quickly. And like I say, normally that sort of stuff would bug me. And to a slight extent, like I said, it did. So I had to chop off some points for that, but the fact is, it worked in this story. Okay, the story still flowed and went along, and like I say, it worked. Okay, so finally, one other odd aspect in this story is there's often a lot of build-up with bosses or monsters, and then when the fight comes, it's practically over before it begins. You'll get a whole lot of, this guy's so tough, he once pulled the eye out of a mountain giant, with his pinky, as the rest of it, his other 4 arms were behind his back, and he was blindfolded and hanging upside down inside the belly of the Sarlacc, that sort of stuff. And then they come up and they're like, hey, and the guy's done. And that was kind of like, what? So the fighting could have been fluffed just a little bit more. Maybe. No, the fighting should have been fluffed, okay? Like I say, that was an issue for me, that the fighting needed fluffed up a little bit, because there was really a lot of build-up and then no battle. It's like, taking Napoleon here and Attila the Hun here, and then 3 guys come out and they kickbox for 5 minutes and then the war's over. And you're like, well, wait, Attila the Hun versus Napoleon. That sounds amazing. And two guys kickbox and that's it. You have a lot of buildup and then, yeah. And I make it sound negative, and I'm not trying to be that way, but that's just the way it kind of came across, was like a lot of buildup, a lot of stuff, and then not so much with the fighting. But that, like I say, this is more about world building and characters than it is about the fighting and that sort of thing. And, I don't like slice of life books, but that's pretty much what this is. And I guess I'm beginning to convert, because there's been several books I say, well, I really don't like slice of life books. But ever since like Level Up Restart or whatever that first book was, which was slice of life that I really liked, more and more I'm finding that I'm beginning to enjoy the slice of life stuff. And that's pretty much what this is. It's just we go from here to here to here to here to there to there to there and do stuff. And this is what happens. It is what it is. So you're just going to have to deal with the time gaps and the lack of fights. It's just the way it is. But it's worth it. It really is. It's a good story. Doug Teasdale Jr., I'm going to make sure I say Junior, does a great job narrating and living the story out for you. He took me a little bit to get used to for this story, and I don't know why. Because once I settled in, I was impressed with his skill and versatility. And I know him from the Days of Future Past series by John Van Strive, where he does some incredible work. I really like that story. The storyline is incredible. I've enjoyed it for a long time, and yet here he kind of took me a little bit to get into the story a bit, and I think it's because of like the aspect of how the story's written, with letters home and that sort of thing. So I don't know if that was just the way it was, but he has skill and versatility, and he held my interest. But there were points where he does seem a little rushed. I mean, just a little rushed, or was wrapping up the pace. Was upping the pace. Yeah, he was upping the pace pretty much unnecessarily. And I don't know if that was just he was just caught up with the book or what, but it seemed like it would go through real quick when it shouldn't have. But that's just me. As I listen to things, I try to say, like, why do I feel like I'm moving quicker here than I do somewhere else, or why do I feel like I'm going slower somewhere else? Here, I was completely feeling like I was being rushed the entire time. Okay, but I think he did better in the Days of Future Past series for the narration, which is odd because that's an earlier work. So I'd say he did like a 7 out of 10 on his part of the book. He kept the story moving and going, but I wasn't overwhelmed. I think he did a good job. Final score is a 7.9. I enjoyed it, but I think the fighting scenes could have been better fleshed out, and there was a weakish ending, that wasn't as strong as the rest of the story. Coupled with the slow start, I have to consider the book as fun and captivating, but it's not perfect. So, I am taking some stuff off, where I said that this was really good and I enjoyed it. I gave myself a number, and I took away things as I went, and 7.9 is where I ended. Still a really good book, still a really good story, very interesting characters. I recommend it. So the next up is the Trapped Mind Project. Emerilia, Book 1, by Michael Chatfield, narrated by Tristan Morris, with a book length of 18 hours and 19 minutes.
The real world fell away as he came into a white circular room. He moved around. Well, this is awesome. He touched his hands, touched his face. Look at me, Mom. Walking and talking. A regular circus act. He laughed at his own joke as a prompt came up. System message. Would you like to begin your game? Yes or no? Zane thought of yes, and the prompt disappeared. Damn. They were just talking about that feature a few months ago. Nice. The white world faded to black. He heard birds chirp in the distance and felt a faint warm breeze on his skin. It smelled like damp wood, food, fire, and hay. He looked around. He was lying on a metal altar, looking up at a mural of 6 colored circles that touched one another. Black, gold, white, blue, green, and red. They were formed into a connecting ring above him. Get off the spawn point, dude. My buddy's trying to revive, and you're in the way.
So, again, this is one of those books I wanted to do this. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and just have not had a chance to get around it because I keep getting other books shoved in front of me here. And I think this is a really good book. And I also want to review another Chatfield novel that came out recently. But I feel like I can't do that until I at least acknowledge, book one of his writing career here, The Trapped Mind, because it's a really good book. So this is where this is coming from, just so you know. And I'm going to do the same thing with Greystone Chronicles here in a little bit. But I do need to say that boredom is a dangerous thing. They say that the hardest part of war is the boredom. Now, I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. Getting shot, stabbed, blown up, maimed, or killed has to be hard. Not getting shot, stabbed, blown up, maimed, or killed has to be even harder. So being bored is really only dangerous when you're not at war. So what happens when you don't know you're at war, but you're bored as hell? I don't know. Well, that's the question that Chatfield kind of asks and answers in book one of The Trapped Mind. Now, I don't want to spoil anything, but this series is really fairly far along, and I think I can give a little bit away. Emerilia is sort of like the Matrix on crack, okay? The MC Dave is just a bored cat. He just wants to change his life in any way he can just to make it more interesting for him. So he turns to what, of all things, what do you think is going to be? Gaming. He turns to gaming to give him some pleasure. I don't know where he got the idea at. I think that like a million other people in the country, a million other people in the state of Ohio have that same idea. So it turns out the game that he plays is really fun. And it's just what he's been looking for. I mean, this is it. This cat's like, man, I have been wanting to do this my whole life. But it turns out that the game is actually the real world. And the life he'd been living is a lie. All right. It's a nice twist. Especially for the LitRPG genre, in which this game is actually the reality, and the reality is actually fantasy. This really works, and it carries a nice impact for the listener. And I'm not trying to spoil it, but I mean, it's one of those things you'll just get over this hurdle and go through. The rest of the series is just intense. Now, I generally try to purge anything negative from my system first and then tackle the good stuff unless there's a lot of negative things, and then I'll go through that and say it like this. But I do have some nits to pick. Nothing overly bad. And if you know me, you know I'll have 15 horrible things to say about a book I love. But that's just me. I listen to books in the car. I drive a lot, and my wife, if I'm lucky, will listen along with me. Otherwise, I have to use headphones, because she gets really annoyed when all the crunchy bits start flying. So in other words, whenever stats or alert notices start flying and never end, she just tells me to shut it off or put some plugs in, because it overwhelms her. It annoys her. It overwhelms her. And I get it. I totally do. So on one hand, if you like things that are crunchy, this is perfect for you. Otherwise, it can be a bit off-putting like it is for her. It bugs me a little bit, but not so much. I look at when it was written, because there was a point in time, I think, where in LitRPG, the stats were the thing. You had to have it in there. You had to do this and that and the other thing and have the numbers in order to qualify it as being a LitRPG book. And so I get it. And again, it's fine. I have no problem with that. Like I said, I look for when it was written, and it is a LitRPG book. So it's just something somebody has to deal with. I know myself, I prefer less crunch than, like, say, Ramon, because if I listen to a Ramon review, he'll be the first person to say, it's kind of a little bit light on the stats or the gaming mechanics or something like that. He likes crunchy stuff. I'm more of a peanut butter sandwich with maybe a hunk of lettuce put on top just for a little bit of crunch. I like the chewiness, but I don't need the crunchy stuff. I don't need chocolate in my peanut butter or vice versa. So, it's just the way this works. I mean, there were points in time when stats were important, but my wife, I see her point, because when you start getting damage reports, level alerts, and anything else that repeats itself on the page over and over and over again that you can't skim as you're listening in the car, it kind of comes off like Dr. Strange meeting Dormammu. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. I don't know why I did like it was almost a Bernie Sanders impression. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. I can't even do Bernie Sanders. I don't know what I'm doing now. But anyway, that's what it comes across like. It just is a repeat mode. It can drive me crazy sometimes. But thankfully, we get into the meat of the story, and it kind of dies down. Additionally, and this is only speculation, I have to wonder if Chatfield started writing his book twice, like from a point where he found it to be interesting, and then at the beginning, because he does sort of rehash some of his world-building stuff a couple of times. Like, it's almost like he had two books put together into one, or like he started a story and then said, I'm just going to pick up from here and go there. I don't know, but it was just kind of a weird way of things. As you're reading or listening to it, you'll see. And if I'm wrong, let me know. But I don't know if this was two books that got folded into one, but it was a touch distracting going over something we already knew for no particular reason. It was just weird how that happened. Now, for the good stuff. The book not only fed my need for action, it also sated my intellectual needs. There were great periods of character growth, story building, and some mind-blowing concepts thrown around. Chatfield really flipped everything on its side and bounced it off a wall. This is a brilliant concept. The characters are interesting, the plot grips you, the unexpected truth will knock you down, and there is good action here as well as the quiet moments. The story will grab you and take you for one heck of a ride. And all that stuff I said at first was just minor crap. Just remember that. I told you. I like to pick at nits and complain about stuff that I really like. The real meat of this book is delicious. I sucked the marrow from the bones of this book. And you know, all the amount of fat and gristle that are left, it's negligible. So, you know, it's a tasty treat of a novel. I really, really, really like this book. I don't know if you can tell, but I loved it. Anyway, the story and the characters progress at a realistic speed, and they hold your attention and make you want more. Morris, he makes a fine first impression on me as a narrator. I'd never heard of him before this, but I can see why he has the gig. He's really good. He brings the story to life. He works hard to give each character's distinctive and individualized voices. Some voices do blur just a little bit, and it takes sometimes it takes a tag like so-and-so said in order for you to know who's speaking, but he still puts out a lot of different voices, and he's almost done 100 audiobooks, so you can tell the man knows his business. He can keep the pace and the plot and everything together. Everything moves along. I never felt like there was an issue or a flub. I mean, it's very professionally done. It's nice. It's exciting. I enjoyed the book a lot. So, you know, his portion was pretty well received by me. You know, like I said, I enjoyed him a lot. So as you go through, if you really, really haven't ever heard of Tristan Morris, go back and look him up. See if there's anything else out there you might like. I enjoyed him. And again, this is one of those cases where the guy's done like, I think, 10 Emerilia, oh my God, I can't talk. 10 Emerilia books. And he hasn't really done a lot of other stuff in the genre. And I don't know why. Final score is 8.2. It's a good beginning, but the middle kind of slumped a little bit. And it felt like there was two books that were kind of combined. So it's a great start to an incredible series. So next time around, I hit a Chatfield book, which will be soon. I'm probably going to be doing his newest Audible book with a new series. I might come back to do some other books in this series, but he's got other stuff out, and I'm trying now to push those so that authors have like their newest stuff fluffed up. But I think it's fair to go back and say, hey, look, don't forget these books. Just don't forget about them because they're really good. This is an especially good book. You'll like it. 8.2. Ooh. My sound booth spotlight is The Greystone Chronicles, Book 1, IO Online by who? Dave Wilmars. Narrated by Lori Catherine Winkle and Jeff Hayes, with a book length of 14 hours and 43 minutes. Whew, that's a long time to have fun.
Opening the door, Brick peered into the room. There was a group of half a dozen imps working in what was clearly a large kitchen. One imp, larger than the rest, had a chef's hat on its head and was working with 2 cleavers. They were preparing meat of some kind, chopping, seasoning, and skewering chunks to be set over a fire. A small cage with a pathetic-looking goblin in it spoke volumes about what kind of meat the imps were cooking. Lainey and Max each hit an imp in the head with an arrow as Brick stomped into the room and slammed down his shield. He began cursing and shouting at the imps, motioning at the nearest with his hammer and blasting it with Holy Smite. The imp dropped dead instantly, while the others attacked Brick.
Nothing like a little light magic to piss off demons.
The larger imp with the hat charged at Brick, slamming one cleaver after the other into his shield. The other imps, including the two with arrows in their skulls, moved to one side of the room and tried to shoot fireballs past Brick's shield.
Well, like I say, this was a lot of fun. This book has a lot going on for it, so let me get the easy stuff out of the way. Y'all know I'm a huge fan of sound booth theater. That's why I'm doing this gig in the first place, because Jeff Hayes has always been my favorite narrator. He was the first guy I really listened to that actually could tell a story with his voice. I can remember listening to like Silence of the Lambs read by Kathy Bates and being bored out of my skull years ago and thinking, these audiobooks will never catch on. There's just nothing to it. You have a Oscar-winning actress, and I'm bored out of my mind. I didn't know what to do. I really didn't. I just said, these things will never work. They'll never catch on. It's going to be for people that can't read, so people that can't see, or people that go long distances driving, like truck drivers, and that's who these are going to be for. And they'll never be like anything worthwhile. So I used to watch the Audible sections in the libraries, and they never got real big. It wasn't really until I started going to college, going back and forth, that I would get like some books that were on tape or something like that and listen to them while I drove. But what I really did was usually I would record my classes and then listen to them as I would go to and from school, because I had a long commute. And so, when I first came and said, I have no time to read anymore, what am I going to do? And the first thing I thought was, well, they have audiobooks. I'll give them a try. And I think one of the first books that I listened to was probably like Morning Wood, with Jeff Hayes reading it. And I'm thinking, damn, this guy he's just incredible. He's amazing. And I was like, where's this guy been in my entire life for books? Because if he had been around years ago, I would have an even bigger Audible library than I have right now. So like I say, when I say Jeff is my favorite narrator, it is no small praise. The guy is really good, and he is the reason why I listen to audiobooks in the first place. Just the fact that this is a sound booth theater book and Jeff Hayes is in it, those two facts alone meant I was going to get this. I mean, seriously, Hayes, as I've said before, probably one of my first shows, is the master of the vocal arts. He's Dr. Strange, but with his voice, he can do so many voices. He can do this, that, the other thing. He can go to here, and he can go to here. He does all these different voices, he can do it just like that too. It's really impressive, just to hear him doing things, and he can fast talk. That's the best part about it, is I love to hear him do like quantum use, with quantum style speech. It's one of those things that I can't get to, because if I tried to do it, I would come across being like a 30s, announcer, like, yeah, they go down the street, there they go, yeah, and that's how they're doing things, and this guy's a tough kid, he's taking a punch to the face, and that's it, they're going down, the ship is going down now, he got popped in the eye, and the ship has set sail, he's fallen to the, that's how I would talk. I would do that kind of 30s, kind of whatever you call that sort of canter. I wouldn't be able to pull it off, and he pulls off quantum use so beautifully that it just astounds me. But lo and behold, here, Jeff did not do all the heavy lifting. Nope. Lori Catherine Winkle. Lori, what's that thing they do like this? Is that right? I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to do something seriously. I don't want to throw a gang sign at you, and I don't want to do something inappropriate, because I know if I do this, that's wrong. So I think is it like this? I don't do that sort of stuff, but Lori, you're awesome. Love you. Lori Catherine Winkle takes the lead narration slot and is kind enough to let Hayes kind of do the voices for the male characters. And when I say kind enough, that's because she pretty much runs the show. I have to say, I'm always amazed, continually blown away by the amount of talent that SBT has under their banner. You can go out and find a bunch of really decent narrators who can they can do their job. And they sound nice and they sound good. Like I said, Kathy Bates, she's a renowned actress, but she's not a narrator. And there's a lot of narrators out there who have like a good quality. There are very few that match the SBT level of sophistication, though. Very few. And Lori is one of the reasons why they have such a high standard. She is just intense across the board when it comes to the narration. So be aware, the sound quality and the narration will just blow your expectations into orbit. I have to say that was really refreshing. I think it was the first time that LCW, Lori Catherine Winkle, the Bonnie to Justin Thomas James Clyde, this time she is the head lead of this book. She takes those reins and kills it. Like I said, I do think this was her first time doing that. I don't want to say that definitively, but I think that she'd otherwise just kind of been a backup player for quite a few books. But this is the first time that I can remember listening to Lori on her own taking lead of a novel. Not disappointed. Not at all. I think she just did an incredible job, and she needs to be commended. And Sound Booth, as always, takes the story and just flips it and makes it more exciting and better. Next, the writing. Well, little doggies. Yeah, we here at Outpost 31. We don't have much to do except listen to stories all day. I tell you, this here story is grade A, top-notch stuff. It's fresh off the shelf, hard-boiled whiskey. Hard-boiled? You don't boil whiskey. You cure it. Either way, the characters are all very fun, and I would have had a hard time narrowing out a favorite. Not really. You'll know one in a minute here. But anyway, Alexander has a cool side story about, being healed via his immersion in the game. But that plot really isn't resolved by the end of the book. So I guess that will be kind of looked up in the next. And the reason why I'm doing this book is because book 2 came out. And what I want to do is I don't want to jump into a series and say, oh, here's book 2. And not give you book 1 when it's very easy for me to go back and get book 1 like I do right here. And so I'm going to start off with book 1 here for a couple of reasons. One, this is Dave Wilmore's first novel that he had written. And so it's good to go back and kind of see how he did in the book when he first started out, what his ideas were, what his concepts were, how things worked. It's also fun to kind of go and say, there is another book right after this that I can go and review sometime in the near future and say, here's part 2, and keep up with it. Because I don't like doing book 4 in a series. If somebody comes out with book 4 and I haven't read book 1, I really don't want to review book 4. I want to review book 1, 2, 3, 4 down the line. And this way it helps me give a boost to a book that deserves the love. I think people may have ignored it for a while. And this gets this book out because, Dave Wilmore just came out with an incredible new post-apocalyptic sci-fi novel, Shadow Sun, or I'm going to mispronounce the title. I'm not going to goof it up, but Shadow Sun. We're in this Shadow Sun. Forgive me, Dave. Forgive me. But that book has just been going like gangbusters, just like gangbusters. And of course, the Dark Elf story, I love the Dark Elf story. There's just so many parts of that story line, that series, that just appeal to me, and I'm waiting so badly for book 2. You just don't know. But it's like a sci-fi horror LitRPG book with zombies and diseases and just end-of-the-world stuff. Awesome things. I love that series so much, and I've only read book 1. But I go back to this because it does give a boost to the original series, and the series just concluded. So right now we only have books 1 and 2 out on Audible, and so I can kind of keep pace as these go out, and I want to do that. So I'll be Shadow Sun Survival, I'll be with the Dark Elf series, and then this one, I can kind of take you through the whole thing and not misstep and keep up. So I really like that idea of doing this. So, the fact that this plot line isn't resolved at the end of book 1 is fun because there's plenty more books where this came from. And you'll be happy one way or another. The action, oh, and by the way, yay, another one. I can't wait. The action is really, really great. And that's something I've got to stress because in my first book today, I talked about a book that, the city in the dungeon and those that dwell, where the action was kind of, where's it at? What happened to the action? I don't know what happened to the action because the action was kind of there, but it wasn't kind of there. Here, the action is smacking you in the face. It reminds me of that scene, if you ever look at the Tom Hanks bachelor party, where the bus crashes into the movie theater in the 3D show right when a bus is coming at the audience, and everybody's like, wow, that's amazing. And then they get out and they're fist fighting, and, one guy's like, the one lady with the one guy, she's like, this movie's amazing. And the guy's like, meh, it's okay. And then this fist comes up and punches him in the face, and he's like, wow. And that's how this book is. It's a nice fist punch right in the face. Pow. That's better. Air. See, lover but not a fighter, but still can punch. The whole thing is it's good when it's 3 a.m. and you don't want to stop listening. I've talked about this before, and you have to get up at 6. Yeah, it pulls you in deep because it puts off the sleep. And this is that kind of a book, just that kind of a book. It's also a book in which the secondary characters absolutely add to the plot point in golden ways, and sometimes even steal the show away from the main players. For example, if you ever hear the words pew pew in real life, you will not ever not be able to think of a certain little green guy named Fibble, or a silly squirrel that kind of hangs around. In fact, there's a real reason that Fibble is getting his own standalone novel. He's just that freaking cool. I mean, pew pew. As much as I rag on my kids because when we first got them and we were fostering, they would come out with their guns and they go pew pew pew, and I'm like, don't ever do that. They're like, why? I'm like, because the guys that shoot the guns that go pew pew couldn't hit you if you were standing right in front of them. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, just watch all the stormtroopers pew-pewing at people, and lasers and phasers and whatever plasma beams go flying all over the place. No one gets killed. And then, the hero goes, closed eyes, stop looking, got a mirror, and, they blow away like 5 stormtroopers with just one shot. And so I said, don't ever do that. You just don't go bang bang either. If you're going to play with a gun, either go pew 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 pew, or if it's a real gun, you go pew 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 pew. Don't go bang bang bang. Don't do that stuff. And here the pew pew, it makes me laugh. So there's a reason why he's getting his own novel, like I said. But wait, did I just say novel? There's not just a novel. Fibble's getting his own plush doll. That says something. So there are points where the scenery gets chewed by somebody other than the MC, and you don't really mind. And that's rare. When you have a book like, you should say, well, this took away from the main character. This took away from the story. And it doesn't. It only adds to it. It really, really keeps you going, keeps you interested, and there's just no way to escape it once you get going. So, the background people, they're cool as hell. And I'll tell you why. The party chat, not that they're chatting in the party chat, but you have to realize if there's 10 people in the game and they're playing and they're all talking, that's party chat. It feels like real dialogue, and it feels like gamers talking to each other. Now, I've played, and my wife has played many. My wife has played so many more MMORPGs than I ever have and ever will. In fact, I'm kind of getting out of the whole gaming world kind of thing. I like solo games. So, Skyrim is a preferable game to me where I can play by myself. I don't have to interact because I'm a misanthrope. I'm horrible with people. I don't like to be around people for more than 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I get antsy and I need to leave, and that's my autism. I have kids who are autistic, and my wife tells me all the time I'm autistic. I can't be in a group of people without feeling like, okay, it's time for me to go. Can't talk to somebody on the phone for more than 5 minutes without being like, my phone's on fire, goodbye. I just can't do those sorts of things. And so the interactions that I've had, it feels genuine. And like I said, she even said that the dialogue felt real. And that's rare. Like I say, my wife will listen to stuff only so far. Like, I think the only books that she's ever listened to with me all the way through were the Bathrobe Night novels by Charles Dean. But when we were listening to this, we didn't have time to listen to the whole thing in the vehicle, but listening to this, she felt it was genuine sounding as well. So, the game feels real. Everything about it has an authenticity. Now, I will say the only real issue that I took was the flagging of like almost 100 players, 100 people in this PvP infraction thing. I thought it was a little bit over the top, but I mean, hey, game mechanics, they are what they are. There ain't no getting around it. And the point is, this feels more like a game than most LitRPG novels that have all the crunchy stats and things like that. This feels organically like a game in a game world. And one thing I will say that Will Marth and I have very similar views on like PKers, because I hate PKers. And personally, I think that they only detract from gameplay. I remember playing WoW one time, and I was in this zone. I did not mean to go there, and all I was trying to do was just get from A to B and get the hell out. And this guy, he had the animal. I'm getting old, and very clearly I'm getting Alzheimer's or dementia or something, because my brain does not access information. I will sit here and think for 10 minutes about a word. But the characters that have in WoW, they have the pets, whatever they are. I can't think of it right off the top of my head. But he had like a lion, a mountain lion or something like that. And I was playing a fighter, zombie dude, Z-O-M-B-E-E dude. And all I was trying to do was get from A to B and not have to fight anybody. And this guy jumped me. And I was like, you know what? I'm going back, and then I camped him. I waited, he was still hanging out in the same exact spot, and my guy had a hell of a run. Zombie dude had this, like, sprint, and I had this really OP axe that my brother helped me get at a level that I really shouldn't be able to get it at. I got it at like a super low level, but it was a high-level axe. He was like, come with me, I'll help you get it. You just fight, and then I'll kill the guy, and you get the axe at the end. So I had this really awesome, it was like a whirlwind axe, I think it was called, and I was smart, and I said, I'm not going to chop the guy's pet. I'm chopping the guy, because if I chop the pet, by the time I get done chopping the pet, I'll be dead, and he'll still have some hit points. So I just started chopping the dude, and I killed him. And then I did it again, and again, and again, and again, and I just wait for him to come back and go to get his body, and then zing, I hit him again. I must have done that like 10 times, and I was like, that will teach that dude a lesson. I hate PKers. That was the only time I ever killed somebody, but that was only in revenge, and it was a spiteful thing to do. I think the best way to get revenge is the way that James Hunter does it with like Cooter Joe. Cooter Joe and he have a backstory, and if you ever hear him talk, James Hunter will tell you all about Cooter Joe and why he appears in his books. And, so that's a good way to do it. You just go out there and you own that person through your writing. And I think Dave, he makes it very clear how he feels about, these SOBs. He has a great distaste for them. And he makes no qualms about it. Now, he also, and I don't want to sound weird when I say this, he sort of praises capitalism because he does this really, really fine job of detailing like in-game currency with the real world and that sort of stuff. And he keeps it interesting. I think it goes on for like maybe 10 pages or something like that. It's a long chunk of explanation, but it's not a boring chunk of explanation. It's detailed and it's interesting, and you can see that he has a lot of respect for the way that works, because it's not just about in his game. It's pretty much how it would work in real life with these sorts of games. You could do that with you could point it out with WoW and say this is how this works. I'm not into crypto coins at all, but what do I know? I mean, I don't know nearly as much as Dave Wilmorth on the subject, so obviously I'm going to listen to him. Now, another bonus for me, anyway, is the town building. I love that sort of stuff. Listen to me talk about Tamer or anything where they're building stuff, like, building homes or fortifications or whatever. I love the building of fortifications. I love the building of, your forts or whatever. And town building, that's one of the things I like about, it's in there minorly, but like with Charles Dean's, Harbinger of Ash, the series that, with Lee, that stuff, War Eternus, it might only have like 4 or 5 mentions in the whole book about how he's building this or that for the town. I still enjoy that. I don't know what it is. It just appeals to me so much. But I can read about that stuff all day long. It really, really keeps my attention. And Wilmore does it right. I mean, town building is not easy. There's a balance to it, and he knows what he's doing. Now, I have to admit this. I like the book a lot, and I'm a huge fan of Wilmore's. I have never heard a single bad line come from his metaphorical pen or keyboard or whatever. It seems like every book he writes just gets better as he goes along. And like I said, it appeals to me. His writing style, his concepts, his ideas, they all hit a very nice tone. There's a tonal quality that just it's like you pick up that tuning fork and you go, bing. And that's what you get. You get this nice hum, like the which is the sound of the universe after it was born. The om. And I don't mean like that Tuvan throat singing, like that sort of stuff. I mean, it's a nice tone. It hits you just in the right spot. So like I say, everything he's done so far has just been just about as perfect as you can get. Like I say, there's just very few writers I feel that way about. Charles Dean, Blaise Corvin, Dakota Kraut, James Hunter, and I'm not trying to short anybody. I mean, I can go through a whole bunch of people, but these are the people that, Dave Wilmore is amongst these people that when I read it, you can't do anything wrong. I mean, you could try. They could really throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I would still probably go, damn, that was a really good idea. I never saw that coming, because everything they do is pretty smart. And Dave Wilmore has a really good grasp on, the things that really appeal to people like myself, the sci-fi readers, the fantasy readers. And I think that, if you haven't read these books, you will love them. Like I say, Fibble kind of steals the show as you go along. You'll see what I'm talking about. Now, I will say that I could see, the only thing I could really see that anybody could complain about is that some of the characters are just like a little bit overpowered, or there's like easy loot right at the very beginning, like when they first start coming out and doing things. But I don't know. That might be the case. That I could say that, yes, and I'm not a big fan of OP characters, but just look at the uber leveling in some of the other books, and you'll see my point that it's not uncommon for that sort of thing to happen. And I think for a first book, it's easily excused with the way things work. I don't hold that against him at all. And I don't hold it against the storyline. I think it works just the way it is. Wilmore knows how to hold your attention and make things exciting and make you want to come back for more. And there's a reason why I say that with the ending. Okay, so final score, 8.4. It's one hell of a first novel, and it grabs you right in your tenders and squeezes. It never lets up until the ending, which sort of only leaves you wanting more. Like I say, there's a bit of a shocker at the end that you say, okay, now I need to get book 2. Need to get it now, and then you'll get book 2, and I'm sure you're going to say, now I have to get book 3. What's going on here? No, you won't feel that way. You're like, oh no, I got to get book 3. So just remember, don't miss out. Dave Wilmore is an amazing author. He just knows what he's doing. He just knows what he's doing, and I can't wait to see the other books come to Audible swiftly, especially Shadow Sun Survival. That one I'm just dying for. But I'm also waiting for the Dark Elf, series to get book 2. I don't know where it's at. It's been a while. But anyway, I know you're going to enjoy this book. So give it a shot, and you won't regret it. So the next segment I'm doing is the What Else Have They Done? And this time around, I'm featuring Pickpocket Frankie by a narrator who turned author, Roberto Scarlato. I like how it's got a nice beat to it. And in this one, he not only writes it, he also narrates his own story. It has a book length of 5 hours and 53 minutes.
This decision took some planning. If I was going to live my life on the wallets of others, I did not want to feel guilty about it. What I needed was a clear perspective. I locked my place up and walked to a local coffee shop. I ordered a bottle of water and a blueberry muffin. Didn't want to try coffee yet. Felt I was too young and wasn't looking for my growth to be stunted. Then I sat there, pretending to thumb through another newspaper as I watched people walking past the windows. That day, I devoted 8 straight hours of pure people watching. If I was going fishing, so to speak, it helped to get an idea of where the fish were at. Granted, New York City is a big pond, but they also have big fish. You'd be amazed at what you can learn just from watching people walk. I liked the experiment so much, I did it every day for 2 weeks.
So, if you can't tell, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite narrators today, Roberto Scarlato, whom you may know from the Accidental Traveler series by Jamie and C.J. Davis. Now, I've actually listened to a lot of his narration outside of the LitRPG genre, and I appreciate his narration style and skills. However, he is also, you may not know this, an author of no small skills. Scarlato often writes weird, wonderful stories. For example, in Fall Where They May, there's a detective who's retired who has to solve a murder after he's been cursed to shuffle a deck of cards with one hand repeatedly, non-stop. And every time he drops a card, something bad happens to him. It's really good. He also has written a book called Reviled, in which the leather jacket of a serial killer begins fusing with the flesh of its new owner, making him want to do bad things. That's the kind of stuff that appeals to me. Weird, creepy, fun stuff. Now, speaking of weird and creepy, I do have a couple of additions to the Audible library today that I want to introduce you to. You may have heard me talking about we've had some changes in our family, and these are the gentlemen that I'm going to be introducing you to right now. These are the new Audible library superheroes. Come on in, guys. This right here is Blue Ranger Quillen. And this is Earth 312 Spider-Man Lucas. All right, guys, listen. You don't know this, but we're looking for Pickpocket Frankie. He's been going around stealing stuff out of people's pockets. You guys think you can go and find him and take care of him for us? You sure? Is it too big a job?
No.
You don't think you're going to get your butts kicked or anything?
No.
You good?
Yeah.
All right. You guys go look for Pickpocket Frankie, and when we end the episode, maybe you'll find him? Okay. Chop, chop. All right, so Pickpocket Frankie is just an absolute delight, okay? They're still over there looking around. All right, like I say, Pickpocket Frankie is an absolute delight. The book, in spite of being based on a tragedy that happens to Frankie when he's a young man, is actually kind of lighthearted and humorous. Frankie is a very likable guy. You actually feel for him, and he's not a callous criminal. The book kind of starts off with Frankie finding out that his life savings have gone missing, and this kind of goes downhill from there. Frankie himself is interesting insofar as he's been on his own since he was a snot-nosed brat, much like the two young men you just saw, and he had to learn how to pick pockets in order to survive. Scarlato very cleverly uses pop culture references throughout his book to a very good effect. In a really good way, I have to add. Frankie is quick-witted. He's deservedly self-reliant. He can totally take care of himself. That's what self-reliant means, in case you don't know that. And I'm just repeating things. I'm being stupid. But anyway, I think that it was everybody else in the story that kind of had to look out for him, believe it or not, because he's pretty smart. He's swift on his feet. Like I say, Scarlato, he pulls double duty as an author and a narrator in this story. His writing is tip-top, and the narration is spot on. making me wonder why he's not narrating more in this genre. LitRPG would really benefit from his voice. I really think he's got a lot of talent, and I appreciate everything he does. Every time I listen to him, it's incredible. But narration, why am I just talking about narration? Why isn't this guy writing more? I guess that all the writing gets in the way of the narration and vice versa. Regardless, you really feel like Scarlato is Frankie. And I suppose that sort of comes from him having written the character. He knows every nuance and emotion of the man. And that's a benefit of being both a writer and a narrator of the same book. I don't think there's a genre that Scarlato can't write, as he seems to be able to cover different genres with ease from what I've seen. And it's the same thing with the narration itself. He very easily can cover a variety of different people's situations, emotions. I mean, he's pretty much got it down. He's a pretty good narrator as well. And so he's a double threat, honestly. Now, listening to Frankie's plight is enjoyable. You'll snicker, belly laugh, even guffaw once or twice. Scarlato has comedic timing down to a science. I would really like to see this, eventually become a movie. It would be totally unstoppable. But I think I could also see this being like a 2-hour Netflix film that kind of transitions into a number of several other 2-hour flicks. I think Frankie is prime for that slot of media right now. I think it'd be great. He should just totally do like a nice 2-hour screenplay, send that into Netflix. I think this would kill. I think this would be an amazing movie for Netflix. And they could do more. It'd be kind of like, when Psych does their every 2-year, the sequel marathon movies or whatever they are, where the cast all gets together and comes back. Well, you can just do this. I guess it'd be kind of like the Junkyard Murders or the Baker's Dozen, whatever those things are on Lifetime, where they have the murder mysteries come up, every so often with the same people. Like Lori Loughlin, who's going to jail, so there's no mystery there, right? She did it. So anyway, that's just one of those things. I just think it would really, really benefit in that format. It just really fits really well there. Like I said, I could have chosen a number of other books that he's written, but Frankie is just that interesting of a character that I really wanted to showcase him. Frankie is skillfully done, and what really stands out is this work, of all of his work that he's done, this piece really stands out the most to me. And that in itself should say something, because I really do prefer supernatural or straight up horror to real life styled stuff. Real life does not interest me at all. But the fact that it had that criminal element really appealed. But it was just Frankie himself who pulled me right in. And Scarlato's portrayal was just perfect. I don't know if it's the humor, the characterization, or the craziness in the story itself, as in what he endures, or any number of other things. But I do know that I love this story and the character. And I think that if you're looking for a break from LitRPG but want to still support the members of the community in this fantastic genre that we have, this is a great place to start. Go out and support other things that, your authors have done. I'm sure at some point, Charles Dean won't do just LitRPG, or nor shall Blaise Corvin or Dave Wilmarth, or, I can name anybody off. They're not all going to do LitRPG. Just like Jeff Hayes does not just do LitRPG. Andrea Parsnow does not just do LitRPG. There's a lot of things out there, and other folks, they kind of spread themselves around. And I think that, just doing one thing all the time can kind of burn you out. And I think that like Dave Wilmarth doing the post-apocalyptic thing, but keeping it sort of lit, was pretty smart. It gave him an outlet so he's not burned out all the way. But in the same sense of the word, he's still in the lit community. And I'm sure in the future he can branch out even further afield and still keep his fans and not alienate the community, because we're allowed to go out and do different things. And that's what I think here. Scarlato does a lot of incredible short stories. Some are longer, some are shorter, but they're all good. They're all good. Everything I've read so far has just been incredible. I should say listen to. But in all seriousness, folks, just check this book out. It's fun, funny, and touching. Plus, it's a rare chance to get a book that's written by an apt author and definitely narrated by the same person. Most people who narrate their own stuff can't handle their own voice work, and most narrators can't put their stories to paper properly. It just doesn't happen. So take a chance and listen to a man that can do both. Give this book a shot. Like I said, I don't do scores for these, but I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. I really like this book. I think Roberto Scarlato is an excellent narrator. And this is just one of those ones that if you like crime or fun, this is a good book for you to get and check out. I enjoyed listening to every second of it. And it's nice because it's under 6 hours. 6 hours is a perfect listening time. You can get it in one day if you want, if you're doing it straight shot through. If not, a couple 2-hour chunks here or there, and you're gold. So give this book a look. But before we do leave, I need to see if I don't see them around. Where are our heroes? If they found anybody, or if heroes, I'm looking for the Blue Ranger or Earth 312 Spider-Man. Where you guys at? There you are. Did you guys find?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Where's he at?
Right there.
Bring him here. That is a big pickpocket. Do you think you can take care of this dude?
Yeah.
Well, go kick his butt. Okay. All right. Well, that's our show for the evening, aside from the cleanup stuff that I'm going to do later. So thank you much for listening. Hey, is he dead or something?
No.
Still alive? Okay, he's knocked out. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you, folks. We'll see you later. Okay, so I'm not sure how Ramon did this, if he flashed a book code or two somewhere across the top of the screen or something along those lines. But we do have some more book codes to give away, and I do want to point out how to redeem them. So if you've watched this far, congratulations. You now know how to do this and get your codes used up properly. So what you want to do is you want to go to audiobooks.com. Existing audiobook.com account holders can visit their account page. But anyway, visit www.audiobooks.com/promo. Then you create your free account, remembering to click apply after inputting your promo code. Download the free audiobooks.com app for Apple and Android devices. Or you listen to on a desktop from audiobooks.com. Either way, just log in and start listening. Your free audiobook will be waiting for you in the My Books section. So it's a pretty simple thing. You just go to audiobooks.com, input your code that you saw here, and you've just gotten a free book. Well, that's the show for the evening, guys. I hope you enjoyed the program as always. I love doing this for you all, and I'm glad I'm able to get this back in at a semi-early, maybe a little bit late on time. Get this out by Tuesday kind of deal. Still crazy time, but we talked to wife and letting the kids come down and do this a little bit after their bedtime so that they can have some fun. So I do appreciate you taking your time to watch or listen to the show. As always, I'm going to ask if you want to support us. You can like the LitRPG Podcast Facebook page or the YouTube page, or just share it like the video. I sincerely hope you've enjoyed the show. Please leave comments or suggestions in the section below. And feel free to tell me whatever you like. I enjoy the feedback. Remember, as always, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. And I do have a new book out. I'm actually not my book. I'm in a new book. It's called Trick or Treat Thrillers, 13 Backyard Monsters, edited by Roma Gray. There's a bunch of other people in there like Kevin Candela, and it's good stories. If you like horror, give it a shot. Right now it's just on Kindle, so you might want to take a chance and look at that. As always, I'm going to ask if you could, please remember to leave a review for any book you've listened to or read. Authors really depend on reviews, and according to somebody I've talked to or I've read about, or I can't remember, but authors need at least 35 3-star reviews in order for a certain algorithm to kick in to get their book out there. So 35 3-star reviews, it matters. It really matters. That means at least 35 people can save somebody's book and keep them writing for the next time around. So bear that in mind as you go. For the LitRPG Audiobook Podcast, I'm Ray. Thank you for coming. Please keep listening.